In this video, you're going to learn about my story. I am Rafael Medina, a motivational coach, and for years I taught thousands of people to believe only in themselves. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened after a lecture in Chicago. A woman I publicly humiliated because of her faith handed me a small medallion of the Virgin Mary. I laughed at the time. But what came next completely changed my life. What seemed like just another object became the beginning of something I still can't explain today. A healing, an awakening, a transformation. So, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a like on this video. This really helps spread testimonies that can touch other lives. And tell me in the comments, what city or country are you watching from right now? I'd love to know how far this story is reaching. May this story speak to your heart. I took the medallion right away, not really knowing what to do. I felt it would be worse to refuse, with so many people watching. So, I shoved it into my jacket pocket and continued the lecture as if nothing had happened, but internally, something had moved me. I finished the event on autopilot, signed the usual autographs, took photos with the attendees, and went to the hotel with my head spinning. I threw the medallion in the nightstand drawer, along with some coins and old papers. I still remember the feeling of contempt mixed with discomfort. That night, I slept poorly. The pain in my leg was stronger than normal, throbbing as if something inside had irritated a nerve. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up sweating, my leg burning. When I opened the drawer to look for a painkiller, I saw the medallion there, gleaming amidst the clutter. I grabbed it without much thought, and at that very moment, I smelled a strong scent of roses. There were no flowers in the room. It was a standard commercial hotel, but the perfume was there, and it wasn't faint. It truly gave me the chills. In the following days, I tried to forget. I returned to my routine of travel, lectures, and meetings. But the smell would appear sometimes, out of nowhere. In the dressing room before events, in the car, even in the bathroom at home. A soft, sweet perfume, yet so present it seemed to fill the entire space. And whenever this happened, I remembered my mother's face. She had died 10 years ago, but every time that scent arose, I would picture her praying the rosary on the living room sofa, with the yellowish light of the lamp behind her. I was a child, maybe 8 years old. I would sit next to her without understanding much, but I liked the peace it brought. And there, in the midst of my busy life, full of control and ego, that small object and that scent were pulling me back to a place I had buried long ago. One Thursday night in Denver, something happened that I've never told anyone, at least not until now. I had just arrived at the auditorium where I was scheduled to speak. I went into the dressing room to review the material, adjust the lapel mic, and focus. I sat on the sofa, as I always did, and the second I took a deep breath, the perfume was there again. But this time it was stronger, denser. It felt like someone had just walked in with a huge bouquet of fresh roses. I stood up, startled, looked around, and even opened the door, thinking someone had come in. But the hallway was empty. And in that instant, from the corner of the stage, between the black curtains, I swear I saw it. A silhouette, a woman, in blue. It wasn't a shadow, it was distinct, visible. She was standing there, and then she vanished. I blinked and she was gone. My heart pounded in a way I'd never felt, not even before stepping onto a stage for 1,000 people. I trembled inside. They called me on the radio, Rafael, all set, and I could only reply with a slightly shaky voice, "I'm coming." During the lecture, my head was a mess. I spoke, smiled, and gestured, as usual, but inside I could only think about what I had seen. Was it fatigue, a hallucination, some strange reflection? But it had touched me in a way that nothing ever had before. I went back to the hotel exhausted. My leg was burning. The pain seemed to have a life of its own. I lay down, unable to sleep, tossing and turning until, on impulse, I went to my suitcase and retrieved the medallion. It was still there, tucked into a corner of the jacket's inner pocket. I sat on the bed, held the object in the palm of my hand, and just looked at it. Not intending to pray, not knowing what to do, I just held it. And in that moment, the pain lessened. It didn't disappear, but it softened, and once again, that scent. My entire room seemed to have turned into a garden. From that night in Denver onward, something shifted in me. Not in a dramatic way, as if a light had descended from the sky. It was more subtle, but constant. I woke up differently, more introspective. I started noticing things that used to go unnoticed: the silence between speeches, the way people looked at me when I talked about pain, the way I avoided certain subjects like faith, for example. And the strangest thing of all was the pain. It was there, but less aggressive each time. One day, for example, I walked down the hotel stairs without holding the railing. I only noticed afterward. On another day, I walked 3 blocks to buy coffee and realized halfway there that I had forgotten to take my morning medication. I, who for years couldn't walk for more than 10 minutes without feeling that sharp sting, was moving as if something inside my body was loosening up, but I didn't want to admit it was because of the medallion. The following week, I returned to Boston. It was late at night when I got home. I dropped my suitcase on the floor, took off my shoes, and went straight to the bathroom. The pain had returned fiercely, perhaps because I had been on the plane for hours. I went to the cabinet to get the medication but saw the blister pack was empty. I remembered I had a reserve one in the nightstand drawer. When I opened it, there it was, the medallion. And again, the scent of roses filled the room, as if someone had sprayed perfume on the walls. But this time, it came with a different feeling, a calmness, a kind of internal silence I hadn't felt in a long time. I sat on the edge of the bed, medallion in hand, and let my body relax. The pain didn't disappear completely, but it became almost imperceptible. And in that instant, for the first time in years, I cried. Alone, silently, I just let the tears fall. That early morning was different from all the others. I sat there, medallion in hand, for over an hour. I didn't say anything. I didn't pray. I just stared into the darkness of the room, with my mind racing and my chest tight. I remembered my mother, the last day in the hospital. I held her hand when she was already weak, her voice fading. I remember asking, genuinely angry, "Where is your Virgin Mary now?" And she, even with barely any strength, smiled. That serene smile of hers, as if she knew something I would never understand. She is here, son, she always has been. I never accepted that. When she died, something in me died too. And that night, holding that simple object, I realized I had never truly faced that pain. I had only covered it with stages, catchphrases, and applause. I cried like I hadn't since her funeral. Not a beautiful movie cry. It was ugly, heavy, painful, a cry that tore me up inside. The next day, I woke up with a strange feeling. I woke up light, I can't explain it. The pain in my leg was still there, but minor, like an echo. I got up slowly, afraid it was all in my head, but I walked to the bathroom without limping. That had never happened. The first steps of the day were always the worst. But that day, they were different. And the strangest thing is that I didn't want to tell anyone. Not my team, not the doctors. It felt like if I spoke out loud, the thing would vanish, so I kept it to myself. I returned to my routine, but now with the medallion always close. I started wearing it around my neck, hidden beneath my shirt. No one saw it, no one knew, but I knew. And every time I touched that cold metal, it was as if something was telling me I wasn't as alone as I thought. That's when something unexpected happened. I was in Seattle, at an event I had done many times before. Same script, same enthusiastic audience, same speech about control, willpower, and independence. But in the middle of the lecture, right at the part where I usually firmly stated that you don't need anyone but yourself, I froze. My mouth went dry. I looked at the audience, saw the attentive faces, waiting for me to finish the sentence, but I couldn't. I had a lump in my throat. I remained silent for a few seconds, enough to generate a slight murmur. And then I spoke. I used to say you are your own savior. But in the last few weeks, something has happened. Something that has changed my perspective. And, without even planning it, my hand went to my neck and held the medallion over my shirt. I felt the cold metal, my heart racing. The room went silent. After the event, something different started happening. People came up to me, but not just for photos or autographs. They wanted to talk, to truly speak. There was a man in his early 50s who came close and said, "Thank you for talking about humility. I needed to hear that today. I've been pretending to be strong my whole life, but I'm tired, and I didn't know what to say." I just listened. For the first time in a long time, I just listened. Without trying to solve it, without wanting to give a ready-made answer, and that touched me more than any applause. It was as if, instead of going on stage to teach, I was now there to learn too. The medallion stayed with me all the time. No one saw it, but I knew it was there. And it seemed to constantly remind me that life is more than just strength. It's also surrender. As the weeks passed, the pain in my leg grew fainter and fainter. It didn't disappear overnight, but I started doing things that were previously unthinkable, climbing stairs without holding the railing, walking for entire blocks without needing to stop, even running after a taxi without feeling that burning ache in my knee. And every time this happened, my head tried to find rational explanations. Had my body, after so many years, finally regenerated itself? Had the treatment that never worked suddenly decided to take effect out of nowhere? But deep down, I knew it wasn't that. I knew it had started the day that woman, in the middle of 400 people, had the courage to say out loud that it was the Virgin Mary who helped her. And even more, I knew it all began when I agreed to hold that small gift that, at the time, I only wanted to get rid of as quickly as possible. 2 months after the Chicago event, I had a scheduled appointment with the orthopedic doctor who had been treating me for years. He was always straightforward, no beating around the bush, and knew my history like no one else. When I entered the room and he saw me walking almost without a limp, he made a face I had never seen on him. "What did you do?" he asked, frowning. "Did the pain disappear?" I shook my head and replied, "Almost completely." He examined me, performed mobility tests, told me to walk back and forth, and stand on my toes. Everything that used to cause pain was now possible. He requested new exams. He said he wanted to understand what was happening. When the results came out, he called me himself, Raphael. "I don't know how to explain it. Everything is normal. There's no more inflammation, no changes. It's as if your knee belongs to a healthy 25-year-old guy." I hung up the phone and stared into space for over half an hour, sitting on the living room sofa, in silence, unable to say anything, because deep down I already knew. 20 days after the lecture in Chicago, I had a dream, but it wasn't a common dream. It was different from anything I had ever experienced while sleeping. I woke up remembering every detail with absurd clarity. In the dream, I was in a place that was completely illuminated. It wasn't a harsh light, but a serene, soft brightness that made my body relax just by being there. There was a peace in that environment that I can't explain. It was as if time had stopped. I looked around, trying to understand where I was, when I saw a figure in the distance. A woman, dressed in blue. Her face wasn't distinct, but I knew, in a way that is impossible to explain, that it was her. The same presence I had seen for seconds in the corner of the stage in Denver. The same presence I felt every time the scent of roses filled my room. She approached slowly. She didn't speak. She just placed her hand over my left leg, and in that instant, it wasn't just my knee that softened. It was my entire chest. I fell to my knees. In the dream, I collapsed. And without thinking, the words came out, "Forgive me." That was all, but it was everything. I felt I wasn't just asking for forgiveness for what I did on stage, nor just for the pride of a lifetime. I was asking for forgiveness for having hardened my heart for so long, for having turned my back on everything that once brought me peace. I cried there, in that place I don't even know where it was, but which felt more real than any other I've ever been in. And the most striking thing is that she didn't say anything. Not a single word. She just stayed there, present, near, silent. And yet, it was as if I had heard everything I needed to. I woke up at 4:15 in the morning with my face soaking wet. It wasn't sweat, it was tears. And my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it wanted to burst out of my mouth. That was the night I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that something much bigger than me had reached me. After that night, my relationship with the medallion changed. It wasn't just an object I carried secretly anymore. It was as if it had gained a life of its own. I started feeling the urge to touch it several times a day, even without realizing it. Sometimes in the middle of a meeting, other times before going to sleep. And every time I did that, a type of internal silence settled in. It wasn't an absence of thought, it was presence. Presence of something greater. I didn't suddenly become religious. I didn't start praying the rosary or going to Mass every Sunday, but what happened inside me was real. I started paying attention to things I previously thought were silly. An elderly man praying in the square, a woman lighting a candle in the church, a child closing their eyes before eating. And for the first time, I saw beauty there. I saw faith. And I understood that faith is not a sign of weakness. On the contrary, faith is what sustains those who are tired of trying alone. There was one specific morning that never left my mind. I went out for a walk before coffee, as it was becoming a habit. The day was cloudy, the sky very gray, typical of March in Boston. And suddenly I stopped, in the middle of the sidewalk. For no apparent reason, I just stopped. I stared at my own feet. And there, standing still, I realized what had happened. I was walking, normally, without pain, without thinking about my knee, without preparing my body to compensate for my stride. It was as if that pain that had accompanied me for 8 years had simply disappeared. People hurried past me, some even looking at me strangely, thinking I was lost. But I didn't care. I just stood there, looking at my feet as if I were witnessing a miracle. And in a way, I was. I slowly raised my head, as if the very air around me had changed. The noise of the city continued, the same horns, hurried footsteps, phone conversations, but everything seemed distant. I brought my hand to my neck, felt the cold metal of the medallion against my skin, and closed my eyes for a moment. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Inside me, the silence said it all. It was as if the world had stopped for a second just to remind me, you are not alone anymore. And that completely disarmed me. It was no longer about physical pain. It was about everything that came with it, the loneliness, the pride, the belief that I needed to prove something all the time. And now, all of that seemed so small compared to what I was feeling. I took a deep breath and kept walking. But this time, with a different weight in my body, not the weight of pain, but the weight of recognition. Months passed. I continued giving my lectures, but a lot changed. The words came out with a different tone. The pauses became longer, and people they noticed. After the events, the hugs lasted longer, the gazes were different. And I also started listening more than talking. There was a day when a young man, very young, approached me at the end of a lecture and said, "Raphael, when you said that sometimes we need to stop controlling everything, I felt you were talking to me," and I smiled. Not a stage smile, a tired, genuine smile. Because I knew exactly what he was talking about. Control is a comfortable illusion, but when it collapses, that's when we truly find ourselves. And every time someone thanked me, I remembered Laura, her courage, and the gift she gave me, that simple medallion that became my turning point. Curiously, Laura never appeared again. I asked the production team to locate her name on the event registration list in Chicago, but no Laura with that profile was found. The name simply wasn't there. Not the email, not the seat. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere and vanished shortly after. This unsettled me for a while. I didn't know if it was a coincidence, a system error, or if it was part of something bigger that I wouldn't understand anytime soon. What I do know is that the medallion she gave me is still with me today. I haven't taken it off my neck. Not even to sleep, not even to shower. It became a kind of reminder. A silent reminder that life is not about control, fame, or performance. It's about listening, about surrender, about humility. And even though I still find it difficult to talk about it out loud, I know something happened. Something real, something that changed me. Sometimes, when I walk alone through the streets of Boston, I still place my hand over the medallion without thinking. And when I do, a calmness comes over me that I don't know where it comes from. I no longer see the blue silhouette. The scent of roses stopped appearing. The dreams also ceased. Everything seems to have returned to normal. But I am not the same. And that's the strangest part. There was no clear explanation, no voice from heaven, no grand revelation. It was as if everything had happened, left a mark, and then disappeared, as suddenly as it began. To this day, I can't explain what it was. I only know that it happened. And sometimes, when I stand before a packed auditorium, and I touch that little piece of metal on my chest, I remember, there are things we don't need to understand to know they are true. Nowadays, when someone asks me what happened to me, I remain silent for a few seconds before answering. Because I know that if I try to explain everything with words, I will fail. There is no clear logic. There's no way to fit it into a mental framework. It's not a story that starts with "I did this" and ends with "therefore this happened." It's different. It's as if something touched me and left an invisible mark. I am no longer the same man. The pain that accompanied me every day is no longer there. And the anger I carried without realizing it is gone too. I didn't become a saint, nor did I change my profession, but inside me, there is something new. A space of silence, of humility, of faith even if still a bit shy. A faith that doesn't demand proof, just presence. Sometimes, in my lectures, when everyone expects the motivational twist, I just tell this story. Not the whole thing, of course, but I say that there are things we don't understand, and it's okay not to understand. I say that asking for help is not weakness. And that believing in something greater than yourself is not giving up control, it's remembering that control was never yours. When I say that, I see in people's eyes that many of them are holding too much alone. And that's when they most need to hear. Maybe you don't have to carry all of this by yourself. Interestingly, after everything, I never had another sign. No dream, no scent, no blue figure. Everything stopped, vanished. And for a while, it bothered me. It seemed like what had started so intensely, so clearly, had left without explanation. But then I understood. It didn't come to keep me tethered, it came to wake me up. And now that I'm awake, the rest is up to me. Silence is part of the process, and I learned to walk with it. And every time I touch the medallion, even if the scent doesn't come, even if I don't see anything, I know. I know that something inside me was touched. And no matter how much the world returns to normal, no matter how much I continue living my life, traveling, lecturing, consulting, there is a part of me that will never go back to being what it was. And all of this started because of a simple gesture, a quiet woman, an unexpected gift, and a presence that no one saw, but which changed everything. If this story moved you in any way, then it fulfilled its purpose, because what I experienced wasn't just a physical healing, it was an awakening. We spend our lives trying to control everything, but sometimes all we need is a sign. A gesture, faith. Now I want to know from you, have you ever experienced something you can't explain? An experience that marked you profoundly? Tell me here in the comments. I read everything. And if this video spoke to your heart, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. This really helps bring these stories to those who need hope the most. If you like the content and want to support the channel, but don't know how, there is a simple way. Click the join button down below. It's a way to walk together and be part of this mission to spread faith and transformation. And don't leave the video now. The next testimony that will appear on the screen has everything to touch your heart even more. Click on it, watch until the end. It might be exactly what you need to hear today. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you. See you later.